The chief sponsor of the bill to legalize marijuana, Senator Liz Krueger, said a full court press is going to be needed in this final month of the session in Albany, and that'll include some arm twisting from Governor Cuomo.
I support it, but if they're starting to suggest that I need to twist arms, that's a bad sign, because arm twisting doesn't work.
Cuomo had initially hoped to get legalization included as part of the state budget, but it was taken out. Speaking with WXXI, he says it makes him nervous to hear that his help is needed.
That's a bad sign, legislatively. That means they're having trouble getting the votes.
The news out of Albany comes just days after similar news out of Trenton. A legislative source told Politico that the legalization effort in New Jersey is dead. Steve Burns, WCBS News Radio 880.
Thank you, Steve. Well, here we are. Mother's Day, May 12th, Sunday, 2019. So let's start out with wishing all you mothers a happy day. Truly hope you have one. Here we are again, boys and girls, ladies and germinators. Legalize It, CNY's Sunday podcast. I had originally planned to do it from home, maybe sit out on my back deck with my lawn and the greenery as a background. But it's 42 degrees and raining on Sunday, May 12th, 2019. Not a good feature, is it? So the last 2 or 3 weeks, there hasn't been much movement, hasn't been much news as far as progress in legalizing cannabis in New York State for smart, thoughtful, responsible, consenting adults. And it's getting to be crunch time, isn't it? We are almost to the end of the legislative session, which means that for this year, we're getting very close to now or never, getting close to do or die, aren't we? And there's some doomsday predictions out there. As you know, I'm one who tries to remain optimistic, and I still am, but it does get a little harder this past week, doesn't it? What I do notice is that some of our members and some of our supporters are beginning to beat themselves up and second guess decisions they may have made last November when we elected people who supposedly, or who definitely told us, that the legalization of cannabis was going to be a high priority. I would remind you, respectfully, as you're beating yourself up and second-guessing your votes or your moves, remind yourself and look back, what were your alternatives? Okay, were there other alternatives that you think may have gotten us further than where we are? Because I would remind you, from my recollection, the alternatives, with those alternatives, we would be in a place where there wouldn't be any conversation at all. Zero, zip, nada. Think about it. Think about the people you voted for, if they were for cannabis, or the people you voted against, they were against. That hasn't changed. The nuts and bolts and the infighting, yeah, that's discouraging. But progress doesn't come easily. Prohibition doesn't repeal by itself, especially when you're talking about nearly 100 years of it. There's some pretty tough mindsets that have to be dealt with, aren't there? So, but let's take a look at what some of the people are saying. As the governor seems to be getting a little cold feet, and maybe he is. I kind of think he's not. I think from all sources I've read, including this one, he still wants to definitely get it done. And hopefully the infighting and the things they're fighting about that are getting in the way are going to get done. When they say the governor has to twist some arms and the governor seems to be hesitant to do that. Well, we could remind the governor that dozens of times he has twisted arms, and only figuratively, use his influence over his party, make some deals. I don't care if you do it in the back room at night at 4 o'clock in the morning. Make some deals and get it done. But like Carl Heastie says, we are having thorough discussions of the proposal, and we are not aware of what the governor is talking about, said Heastie aide Michael Weiland. Okay. We haven't counted the votes yet, and with all due respect to the governor, the speaker has never needed him to twist arms. And he shouldn't. He shouldn't need to twist arms. Why should there be any arm twisting when over 60% of the population favors something? Should be a no-brainer. But they're fighting over some things that, all have to do with money. And we are getting to crunch time. So when you look at the tea leaves, and that's what I've been talking about the last couple of weeks, we have to read the tea leaves. We have to understand what's at stake, what they're fighting for, and how they're hopefully running out the clock to get as much as they possibly can. No one's fighting harder, in my opinion, to effect change with our government than one Cassandra Frederick, the director from the New York State Drug Policy Alliance. I've met her, and I know how passionately she's fighting for legalization, but also for fairness and the recognition of the people she represents most fervently, those who have been most negatively affected by our failed war on drugs, which has been 80 to 90% of war on cannabis and the people who use it. And even more unfortunately, the minority communities where these people more often than not exist. But Cassandra says we need action from the Democratic Party. Marijuana legalization needs to pass during this legislative period. It needs to happen. It needs to pass during this legislation session, period, is what she said, actually. And they're going back and forth about expunging the records of people who have been arrested. Now, think about that for just a second. I know we want it now, and so do I. But what if you're sitting in jail on a cannabis charge? They have cable TV in jail now. Did you know that? I think they get a newspaper once in a while, too. So you're sitting in jail on a cannabis charge, and the very thing you're sitting in jail for becomes legal. Well, what about me? See, we can't just ignore that. So I want to give these folks still, the optimistic benefit of the doubt, because my gut tells me, yeah, they're going to fight and fight and fight. They're going to run out the clock. And I still believe, and I still hope, and I don't want to be wrong. And it's not about whether I'm right or wrong, because we're all fighting for the same thing. You want me to be right. I want to be right. But I believe they're going to get it done. Why? Because the alternative is to do nothing. If the alternative is to do nothing, then that's truly what they've done. They've made a whole lot of noise for nothing. Everyone. That just doesn't seem like it's tenable, like it's doable, like it's realistic. After all, and after the votes have been cast, promises have been made. Yeah, I believe they'll be held to pay if you do nothing. Politically, of course. Another alternative that we're hearing bantered around a little bit is, well, what if we don't, quite legalize for everyone? What if we just expand the medical marijuana program slightly? What if we allow the medical marijuana program to include plant material, to include flower, to open up the qualifying conditions to be whatever the heck you can get a doctor to sign off on. Modeling Oklahoma, I think, is what that would be. They have one of the most robust, most all-inclusive, most easily accessible medical marijuana programs in the nation. In fact, it's pretty much recreational, only you sign up for a card. All kinds of products are available. You can grow some at home. You can exist in freedom. Then why does it even need to be a medical marijuana program? Just so you can register people, just so you can get their names and addresses on a card? I think we're better than that. I think we can do better than that. And I don't want to minimize or demonize, certainly, the medical marijuana patients. I have one in my family, and I know plenty of you. And I think, and you'd agree, you're being failed miserably too. I just think the recreational people, who include, by the way, people who use cannabis for wellness as an adjunct to their daily wellness regimen. And don't for a moment minimize the fact that there are thousands upon thousands of people who do use cannabis medicinally, but they haven't gotten some card that gives them permission to do so. There's a lot of reasons for that. Anonymity, for one, but also the sad fact that the few paltry products that the New York State Medical Marijuana Program allows, although they do help some people, and it's good for them, I'm glad for them, but it's one lousy program with too few products, way over-controlled and way over-regulated. Therefore, it's underserving the masses it was designed to help. So to just expand that a little bit, I don't know, I think we can do better than that. A full, robust, recreational, and I don't even like the word recreational so much, but an open, adult legislation that allows people to use cannabis just for no other reason than they want to, as free-thinking, responsible adults in New York State. We should be able to do that. But the message for today is, please, folks, try to keep a perspective. Try to realize that, that the infighting may go right to the very end. And my optimistic feeling is that maybe it'll happen in the middle of the night. We know that Albany likes to do things that way. And I personally don't care how they do it, as long as they do it. Makes sense to you? Does to me too. So, this week there is a little news to report. It's crunch time. We are supposed to hear from our elected representatives within the next couple days about their Plan B, this supposed expansion of the medical marijuana program. So we'll see if the devil's in the details there. Will it be the wink and a nod medical marijuana program they have in Oklahoma, or that they always had in Massachusetts? In California? Where you go upstairs and pay the toll to the marijuana doctor who qualifies you and gives you your little card, and you go downstairs and buy your weed. Kind of insulting, though. I mean, if it does people good, I'm glad, but it's reminiscent of the pill mills, isn't it? That we see in some states that have been so horrible to the public, that have left death and destruction behind them. Certainly that's not the case with cannabis, but to make it available only for those who want to jump through those hoops and get those cards, and then to expand it to the point where anybody can do it, kind of takes the air out of the whole thing as far as I'm concerned. Look, if you want to involve your doctor, if you want that control and you want that oversight, you should be able to have it. But if you don't, you should also be able to use cannabis as you see fit. And to me, that's what we're fighting for more than anything. And if you read back in some of my interactions this past week, particularly with Senator Diane Savino of Staten Island, hers and my personal communications were printed and published on the Legalize It CNY group page. Hopefully she gets it. I had to remind the senator, and I hope it did not fall on deaf ears, that what we're fighting for, what the cannabis community that I know is fighting for, above all, is freedom. And I hope that's the message you take to people you speak to government officials you may speak to or write to or contact in whatever way you think you need to. Let them know we're fighting for our freedom. Because the fact is, as they set up this regulated retail market, as they set up this tax system, as we know, markets and taxes are things that are never 100% totally effective, and they never 100% make those involved in them happy. In other words, no one will be 100% happy with the tax rate. No one will be 100% happy with where those taxes go and how the taxes are spent. Doesn't matter if it's cannabis, sales tax, or tobacco tax, fuel tax, grocery tax. No one will ever be happy with that. I know I won't. So in the meantime, set the people free. I would say, and you may or may not agree, if you can't get together this legislative session and bring us a retail program and a market that you can all live with, go the way of Vermont. Now, Senator Savino and I did argue back and forth. Did Vermont legalize legislatively? She says no. But they did. And I called her on it. Hers and my dispute, our argument, and let me make it totally clear. She's on our side, folks. She's working very hard, and she deserves our support and respect for what she's doing. But that doesn't mean we can't question her details. So when she says Vermont did not legalize cannabis through legislation, and then she'll say what they did do, and it's true, what they did do is to allow possession and to allow home cultivation for responsible adults with legal limits, with, I think, a little bit too less, but still reasonable legal limits. I don't know about you, but when my government says you can now possess cannabis, you can now grow your own cannabis for your own use, that's legalization, baby. That's legalization. Setting up a market, that's business. I realize how important the market will be for some people, for many people, in fact, who don't have access to cannabis regularly, who live in situations where they could never grow their own. Yeah, they certainly deserve a place to go. And hopefully we'll make sure that happens. But in the meantime, I encourage you all to pay close attention, read the news articles that come out daily, set up a Google alert. I do, I've got a bunch of them. Anytime marijuana, New York, hits the news, get the alerts, read for yourself, post them on the site. I don't find them all, and there are a myriad of different ways to get that information. So I really love it when our members post things that I haven't seen yet. And it reminds us all that the Legalize It CNY group doesn't belong to me. I'm just one guy, it belongs to all of us. I just stop in on Sundays and talk about it, and hopefully disseminate some information and filter some things and maybe save you some time, especially you folks who don't have time to do this. I'm glad to do it because it's my passion. So I will remind everybody, and look, we're days away now, I believe. I believe between now and next Sunday, we're going to have some news. Will it be very good news? Will it be very bad news? Will it be somewhere in the middle? I don't know, but we're going to have some news. This thing has got legs and it's not going away. So please, today and every day, do what you have to do. Use your medicine as you need to use it. If you're a medical marijuana patient, you have both my respect and my sympathies, because you're not getting what you need either. I hope we can remain united. I spoke about the groups as I see them of cannabis users. The medical marijuana patients who have jumped through the hoops and have their cards. The medical marijuana patients who are no less a patient than those with cards, who use cannabis for relief and a better life every day. Then there are the wellness users who use cannabis as an adjunct to their daily wellness regimen. And of course, there are the recreational users who just like to use it to feel cool, to feel good sometimes, responsibly. And we need to support them too, and to support each other. So again, I hope that united we will stand, because divided we may fall. We're most effective together. Let's please keep that in mind. And I'm going to wrap it up for today, make it a little bit short, because I do know it's Mother's Day and you folks got things to do, places to go, so do I. Love your moms today, guys. If you have your mom still around, love her. And love yourselves. Make yourselves feel well. Until next week, and I hope I'll have better news for everybody next week. Peace, y'all, and pot.